Look, that your sexual intimacy, husband and wife, is to be laced with honor.
Yeah.
There's to be value brought there.
Yep.
And I don't know how, we can just dismiss that or even degrade that when God puts such an emphasis on it. I know we say that over and over, but the importance that he places there and says, even in that word value and honor, to value it, to bring light to it and the health of it. So let's look at some ways, maybe in our time today, how can we honor that intimate relationship of husband and wife?
Thanks for joining the Home Matters Podcast with Eric and Gina Boggs, where they lead authentic, raw discussions about marriage, family life, kids, intimacy, and sex from a biblical perspective. Here's your host, Eric and Gina Boggs.
Welcome to Home Matters. Hello, Eric Boggs.
Yep. Glad to be here with you, Gina.
I'm glad you're here too. Thank you.
In our time together, always, we don't take for granted you taking the moment to.
That's right. You being
to
with
listen
us.
In and
share the podcast, man. Get word out there. And I say this all the time, not that there's something that special about us, but the fact that you take time, 20 minutes to focus on your marriage.
And I will say this, it's not they're special about us, but the fact is we know that without, the Lord, without God leading us in life, I do know, you're better than I am, but I do know the possibilities of what a train wreck it could be without him. And,
I'm not better than you.
You are.
Sure. We both need Jesus. Let's just say it.
Yeah, but Jesus. You are not as destructive as I was, or you could have been. I probably rescued you from that, but me and Jesus
rescued me from destruction. Yeah, man. Again, we are so glad you're here. I was talking to somebody just earlier today that they were just talking about taking time away and spending time on their marriage and what a difference it was making in their life. And man, that is what drives us, man, to hear that and to know that if that's happening in your home, that's not just good for you. That's good for your kids, your family tree. You're making a difference for eternity.
And the reason we do this is we know that has worked for us.
Absolutely. Where would we be? Thank you, Lord. We wouldn't be.
If the Lord had not been on our side.
That's the honest truth.
And that is the truth. If God had not been with us, we would have been, I was much more subject to destruction maybe than you were until I saved you. But we want to talk today about, kind of leading into that intimate place of the bedroom.
Yeah, honoring the marriage bed.
Yeah, and it talks about that plainly.
Mm-hmm.
There's a passage that kind of stands out in the middle of a lot of other stuff that God's talking about, that he's speaking to us about.
I love this passage, and we pull it a lot, for our marriage events, and we're about to go to one here in the next day or so, I think. But we pull from this passage a lot, and maybe not so much around it, but in reading it, it's interesting what all is around this passage. It's Hebrews 13:4. The English Standard Version says this: "Let marriage be held in honor among all. Let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous." So the honor of the marriage bed, that's kind of what we're focusing on. But that whole passage there, like what is that coming out of? I love the context there.
Yeah, and it's really, the context is about a life that pleases God and how we love and how we treat others.
That's right. Things that are pleasing to God, right?
Yeah, and again, right in the middle of that, of how we deal with people and how we
relationships
live life. Is this thing about the marriage bed. And it says there that the marriage bed is pure, it's undefiled. And again, it really is talking about our relationship that is unique to marriage between husband and wife.
Right. It's
unique to that.
We talk about the premium that God sets on that intimate part of our relationship, as husband and wife, that is the only relationship, that's the only place that we are to be intimate in that way, right? And
and again, the word honor, most of you out there probably have heard this, but the word honor really means to bring value to, or to place a value on. And what he's saying to us is for our marriage bed, our union, to be something that we bring value to and that we treat in a way that we cherish,
Right.
that we prize, that we treasure that place that God has given us, and we treat it the way God would have us to treat it, right?
And isn't that something that's right in the middle of, God being pleased with the way we treat our brothers and our neighbors and even prisoners and showing hospitality to people? Right in the middle of that, he says, and hey, bring honor to marriage.
Yeah. And again, as we live that out, and even to the point that our intimate relationship, our intimate sexual relationship, that is an honorable thing.
Yeah.
We say this all the time, that, if God said don't defile that, then he evidently has made it pure.
Right.
If he says, one of the versions says the marriage bed is pure and undefiled. So again, he's declared that the marriage bed, our relationship, is pure and is honored, that we should honor it, that we should value it. Then maybe we need to recognize there's a need even in our lives, even among believers, followers of Jesus, that there's a need in our life that we make sure that we don't dishonor this relationship, our intimate sexual relationship, and treat it like the world treats it, like our culture treats it. It's something that's been degraded and diminished and been defiled in so many ways. He said, don't you bring impurity into something that I have created as pure. And
made holy.
Yeah. And again, it's something that I think is so easy for people to slip into, that they allow the mindsets even about their sexual, intimate relationship to be infiltrated or to be affected by the things that are going on in our
and I think today. Sometimes in the Christian community, it's a subject, and we say it all the time, it's a subject we've even been told you don't need to talk about in the church, but the premium that God places on it, and then just understanding that he says, look, that your sexual intimacy, husband and wife, is to be laced with honor. Yeah. There's to be value brought there. Yep. And I don't know how, we can just dismiss that or even degrade that when God puts such an emphasis on it. I know we say that over and over, but the importance that he places there, and says even in that word value and honor, to value it, to bring light to it, and the health of it. So let's look at some ways, maybe in our time today, how can we honor that intimate relationship of husband and wife? I
think real easy to start is just simply to look at the fact that, the way we speak about this relationship and how we speak about even our intimate life, our sexual relationship, if we're not careful, we can, what I say with the guys is we can carry it to locker room talk. And before we know it, we're out of line, and we're not speaking about it in a very, in a very honorable way. And I don't think that's just men. I don't think it is. I think
the conversations are probably different. I think, in just being with women and the conversations that women have a lot of times, I think we devalue, instead of bringing the honor to, we devalue as that part of our life being, I hear it all the time, just being a chore, or we just check the boxes, or something we have to do. And that in itself brings dishonor, I believe, because it's the way that we're speaking about it. The word is clear that we don't use careless words. We don't use unprofitable words in our speech in general. And especially, I think, when it comes to our sex life, and
it can be foolish talk, and sometimes it would do people good. I know we've dealt with this even in gatherings or settings where there are multiple people, where people just kind of open their mouth. Yeah. And just trying to be silly or funny. But, I go back to the proverb that says even a fool is thought to be wise if he keeps his mouth shut. And I think there are times.
Sometimes you just need to keep your mouth shut.
Yeah, if you can't speak about it and talk about it in a way that's honorable, that we consider pure and holy. Yes. And I'm not saying that, you have to be some stoic stuck in the mud. I'm not saying that. There are times that, with your friend or, your brother, that you may talk about things. It may just be kind of lighthearted. But what I am saying is, even with that, I'm not going to degrade that and make it like it's just any kind of sex act.
Right.
You know, we treat our marriage bed like it's just hooking up sometimes. And we talk about it that way. And we're just saying for your intimate life to be what God intended it to be, I don't think you treat it that way. You don't talk about it that way.
You don't talk about it that way.
Or even, you know, this thought life thing, the way we think about it. All of us have been infiltrated. Again, our society, our culture is saturated with sexuality and images, and it is sex charged, and boy,
it is. And it's easy when that is what is infiltrating you all the time, whether it's from other people, the sources and hearing other conversations of people, or movies, or whatever it is. When we're infiltrated with that all the time, it's easy for those thought processes to go down the wrong track. God help us, Romans 12:2, to let our minds be transformed by the word of God and what he says about our sexuality, what he says it's supposed to be. And those thoughts that don't line up with that, then we get rid of those. I go back to the women again, that sex with my husband is not a chore. It's not just something that I have to do. The word tells me it's something that I can actually enjoy.
Yeah, and I think women have to realize it's not dirty either.
Exactly.
I think that's a biggie with women. They think of it as, especially from the spiritual aspect, they think of of sex, intimacy, intercourse with their husband. They think of it as almost something they need to hide.
Right.
But really and truly, that's not the way God views that relationship.
And there are a lot of things, whether it's, abuses in the past and hurts and all those things that come into play with that. But
promiscuity.
Absolutely. But even in all of that, God is our healer. God can lead us in the right way to be able to deal with those things in our past, so that we can have what we all need: a healthy view, a healthy thought life about our sexual intimate relationship.
Our relationship. And I'll help you out. The Bible says you take every thought captive that exalts itself against the knowledge of Christ. And
absolutely.
And in doing that, we know that with that, I'll help you out. Your thought about your spouse, if it's good and holy, that's a good thought. Even your sexual thoughts toward your spouse, toward your wife or your husband, that's not an unholy thing.
That's right.
That relationship is pure. It's when we step outside of that.
Right. Then that's when
that we dishonor.
We got to get our honor back in line. Right? That's good. Yeah. So the way I'm speaking about it, the way I'm thinking about it in the day-to-day all the time, man, change those thoughts. I say this to women all the time. It's easy to see the things that are wrong. It's easy to see the things my spouse didn't do, or the way they spoke. But man, we have to set our thoughts on the good things, right? And the word clear about that. The things that are honorable, the things that can help us get our thought life in line. Getting my tongue tangled up. All right? What about this when we're talking about honoring? And, this should be a given, right? But maybe it's not, that we never allow others in, or allow anything in that distracts or takes away from the beauty and the purity of this sexual relationship.
Right. I think that in this day and time, there's so much, again, that's out there that
true.
We have to be guarded about, that we have to be aware of. Gina and I mean, we've talked about the reality of social media and the feeds that, not too long back, I told you, I said, look, this thing dropped in my feed. And, I don't know if some of that's targeted or not, but there are things that are out there and I've even had people that I followed, or, I don't do a lot of social media, that I followed, that maybe I don't know them that well. I know who they are, or their relationship connected with other people, and they drop things in, and there it is, and that's something we have to be guarded about. But it's so easy, I think, to bring in that thought process. Or
that's right.
Listen, I've always said it this way: when we bring somebody else into the bedroom through our thought life, it doesn't matter if it's
it's not just physically, right?
No, and it's a given. You said this, but there are people that I know, that I've dealt with, that actually, they use things like pornography
Yeah.
They bring it in, not just one, but even couples that bring in the thoughts with pornography, things that they've been exposed to, and they bring that into their marriage. And that's just like, it may be something you've seen or watching on a phone or a video.
That's right.
But it's just like bringing the other person into the room. That certainly defiles. That leads you into that sexual immorality.
That's right.
That defiles and takes away the purity of our relationship between husband and wife.
That's right. Let me share this quote. John Bevere says, the marriage bed doesn't sanctify ungodly sexual indulgences.
Right.
You know, it's not just okay just because we're both okay with it.
Right.
And this is our marriage bed. That's what he's saying. The marriage bed doesn't sanctify ungodly sexual indulgences. Rather, ungodly behavior defiles the marriage bed and keeps us from enjoying true intimacy.
That's so good.
Yeah, just knowing that, you know, inappropriate, and you said it, even inappropriate relationships, you know, there's emotional adultery. You know, adultery, we usually think as the physical act between, you know, somebody that's married and outside the marriage relationship. But when we give place to other relationships that draw on us emotionally,
But
and
Jesus
we feel
makes it
closer
very
there.
clear, though, in Matthew 5. You know, we talked about this a few weeks ago, but again, he makes it very clear that you even look at a woman with lust. It's adultery. You bring in that. So again, if that attraction or that appetite for others or appetite for another person, if you bring that into the involvement of your thought life or your processes of being engaged with your spouse, then that in itself is out of line.
Yeah.
The last part of that statement, did you read that by John Bevere? Ungodly behavior defiles the marriage bed and keeps us from enjoying true intimacy. And I think that's so true that we can bring in things in our marriage that will handicap.
Yes,
no other word.
It's a good word.
It'll hamstring, the old word, the vibrancy and the life that should be there in your intimate relationship together. Yeah.
What about this one? Last one. All right. This is how we honor, by serving our spouse.
I like it.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Is it okay if I serve you?
Oh, definitely.
Is it okay if you serve me?
Oh, yeah. Good. Every day.
Okay. Well.
How do you serve? 1 Corinthians 7 says that you're to serve me.
Serve with my body.
Mm-hmm.
It says my body's not even mine.
That's right. You give
Congratulations.
Up. Right? Thanks. Yeah. Thank you.
It belongs to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. You said thank you.
And again, you know, we make light of it there, but in reality, we're being instructed that we are give ourselves, that we surrender ourselves to each other in our marriage bed. That's a given.
All about me.
No.
It's
and
not all about.
I don't belong to myself. First, I belong to the Lord.
Yes.
And secondly, I belong to my wife. And that is something, man, if we serve with that mind and that attitude, that we would give ourselves completely, totally to our spouse, man, it changes the whole dynamic. I'm not there just for what I can get from you.
That's so good. And that even in marriage, that's the way we operate sometimes.
Sure it is.
You know, just my spouse. You're just here to serve my needs and, you know, do what I need you to do. But it is a working together. It is serving one another. And when you serve one another, it's more than just locking into the physical.
Right.
It is physical. But there's so much more there as we serve the need, whether it's the emotional need or just the need to be touched or, you know, all that is part of our intimate relationship.
Sure it is.
Right?
You know, we leave with this today. Again, we just encourage you to let this part of your life flourish.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is do it God's way. And you're going to battle some things. We understand that. That's a given.
That's right.
You're going to go through some processes. Don't abort the process.
Stay
committed to each other, in love with each other. Stay committed to your intimate relationship.
The process.
That's
so good.
Stay committed to your intimate relationship. Give it room to grow. Don't give up. Don't get frustrated because, again, there's places that you will grow if you'll let God into that bedroom. You let God into that intimate relationship. Man, you'll find out there are places that you can find together that are fulfilling because God has blessed it. God has
because He is
blessed
there.
that part of your life.
Blesses.
And don't take away from it. Don't treat it cheap. Don't treat it like it's
right.
nothing. Don't treat it like it's just your, your wild side.
That's right.
Treat it like it's a gift from God. Value it that way.
That it is. Yeah.
And your marriage bed will remain pure.
That's right. Honor it. A marriage bed be honored.
Yep. Hey.
Okay, we're gonna
Always
see you next
remember your home matters. And we will.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.